Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You reached the Boho Info Show, and like I promised on my Twitter announcement, I was gonna come back to the Brian and Gabby laundry case situation. I've gotten some new information. I'm gonna share with you guys some possibilities of other events happening connecting to it, and we're gonna show you some things that you might want to think twice about. Now, if you saw the previous shows on my Gabby case and Brian case, they're all posted either in my Twitch link that I've given you guys or in YouTube. Besides, might have posted them over in Twitterland. So check them out because you're gonna hear some referencing to old shows, and you'll have to go back to the old shows to reference some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. Now, before I get started, we're going to do our thing here, saying that we make no claims on anything medically, legally, or otherwise. Take everything we say with a grain of salt. You might be able to see the same thing that we're seeing and saying. And, through any of my shows, I always give my opinion about anything that we discuss, no matter what the topic is. So you'll hear that periodically throughout the shows. Now, I left a comment place open. You guys are free to talk over there. For those who don't know where I'm following from, I'm right now off of YouTube, so you can do your talking in the feed there live for the show. Now, I am also, after this show, going to do another show because we have some new interesting political stuff that's happening that needs to be discussed, because this can hurt your own backyard, your family, your pocketbook, and everything. We'll be talking about that in the next show, but not in this one, amongst other news. So let's get back to it. So we're talking about the Brian and Gabby case, right? And for those who haven't seen my previous shows, you need to see them to know what I'm talking about on a lot of the subject line that we're talking, because I'm going to reference some of those old shows. So without further delay here, I just don't know which way to approach this to you guys, because there's a lot being found. I went back to, if you guys seen the one show that I had there about the spirit box, I went back to that same guy. He did have another spirit box session. And I'm going to tell you, this is from Meki CCE YouTube, where I got the thing from. So he is on YouTube. But, this case is so wild and woolly. My intuition, my psychic ability, my connection to direct God, whatever you want to call it, okay, is telling me do not close this case. Here is what I'm looking at and why. And I'm also going to say that if any government agency at any level, no matter how low, to the local Northport Police Department, all the way up high to the federal level, closes this case, they're going to get it later. They're going to burn later, and they're going to lose their jobs. Okay? I have that strong inclination, because there's some things that are happening. Now, let me get to the spirit box part first. Right now, you got to take this case as kind of like the X-File kind of case. This goes beyond like the special agents. You have to deal with paranormal investigational kind of stuff with this kind of case, because when you can't get it in physical evidence, or the evidence has been flawed, planted, what do you call it? What's the word? Contaminated. you can't get a true reading, and that's how I feel on this case. So I believe that the agencies, the alphabet agencies, need to look at basically a kind of a X-File paranormal, out of the box, non-textbook kind of investigation, and it needs to stay open and continue. Um, and the reason why I'm saying that is that there's motives there, plenty of motives. I mean, you got to look at the father's juice company. It's worth $5 million. There's money motivation there. You have to look at Brian's, if the parents carried life insurance on Brian, okay, or anybody carried life insurance on Brian or Gabby, either one of them. This could be an actual life insurance scandal, where they're cashing in on the life insurance both on Gabby and Brian. Nobody brought that up on any YouTube. And I'm going to call out some YouTubers because they're afraid to touch some of these topics that I've been talking about. And I'm not afraid to talk about it because we're in a country where we have the freedom of speech, and we need to talk about this, whether it's right, wrong, theorizing, or whatever it may be, because how do you resolve a problem if you don't theorize? Okay. So I'm going to call out the Royalist, the Narrator, Cinema Shogun, and Popcorn Planet, and a few others that I don't even wrote down, but there's plenty of them out there. Some are in the Northport, Florida area. Some are in other parts of the country. And I'm doing this because they're just looking at the same old crap that anything is being released about. Okay? I'm looking at it at a perspective of outside the box. And I think this case has to look outside the box. This, I don't care how many conventional detectives are out there, or ex-retired detectives of any sort, whether it's on a local police, a city police, or alphabet agencies or whatever. This case is one of those cases that is a non-traditional textbook kind of case, and I feel strongly, whether it's the direct plugs psychic wise from God or whatever he's doing with me here on this case, that it needs to remain open and forward and explore it in a like a paranormal, but also a X-File kind of way. Okay. Now, with the spirit box that I've taken and listened to several times on the recording on this, and me, I do not have a spirit box. Okay, I do not have a spirit box, but I'm reviewing the same information on the taping of it and reviewing it over and over. It hasn't changed or altered or anything else. So this is true to the being of where I got it from, the McKee YouTube spirit box situation. And I'm just going to read through it. Now we're going to discuss a little bit about that. So it says they're looking at new but not seeking evidence or leads. Well, if you remember when the Northport cops, they were, before they even found the dry bag, or after the dry bag, situation, that they were, or I'm going to say, okay, before the timeline of the dry bag, they were out there searching, but yet they didn't find no dry bag. They didn't find no anything. Now, you're looking on the screen here where the two arrows are pointing to the Carlton Reserve and the Myhackahatchee Creek Environment Park. You see how close both of those are, okay? And knowing in my previous shows, showing where the home was to the creek. Okay, so it was the home, the creek, and then the Carlton Reserve. And then in reverse, it was Carlton Reserve, the creek, and then home, right? Remember I told you connecting dots, distance, all that kind of thing, right? Any hiker would know the same, okay? But for some reason, we didn't have Northport or any other police department looking at it on distance from the home to the creek and from the creek to the reserve, and how many minutes, days, time it takes to get there and back, right? Because time to a hiker is everything for survival, okay? And when you're looking at, if it takes a week to get from point A to point B, what's going to happen? The parents are going to do something else to what? Coerce all the media and all the people that are trying to find Brian, which means all the legal teams that are out there in the field looking for him of all levels, local to federal, okay? Diversion, which will give him a week to go from where? Like a half a week, 3 days wise, maybe 4 or 5, to go from his home to the creek. Then how many days does it take to get to Carlton Reserve, right? I'm just saying, the parents, I feel, is a diversion. Anyway, so, and they're not a diversion, but they're diverting for Brian. So anyway, going back to the spirit box, it says we asked specific questions to the spirit box. And one of the questions is what happened to Brian? And it says contending. It says we had him killed. The actual spirit box said that. And then it says duh, by boat. Now, if you remember when they went up to the DeSoto Parkway, or DeSoto Park there, up near Tampa, Florida. Remember the family camp there for a few days, okay? And then they suspected that he might have a boat. And then later they found that Brian's dad had a boat, a power boat, besides canoe. But the canoe you could see in the backyard because it was yellow, right? It was a plastic one, I think, or something. Fiberglass, whatever it was. But the bigger boat, which was the motorboat, okay, remember, there was a bill of sale that was found on that, I guess, when the laundry sold the boat. Now, it was, I don't know, it was to friends or what, because I really didn't check out the bill of sale on that. But anyway, there's plenty of boats around that island, whether it was Brian's dad's bill of sale kind of thing boat, or whoever else, okay? So, and you got to remember something else. They also found a gun by where? That same campground. Supposedly some fishermen that were in the boat, okay, with a group of friends or a couple friends was there, and there was a gun found by them, which they turned over to Pinellas County, which is Tampa Police, which they still have and hold right now. I believe, the thing is that, here's my theorizing now, that Brian's dad hired that person to kill Brian. They killed him over there by the DeSoto Island campground thing there in Tampa. Or they made the deal with him. And you got to remember, there's other campers. So that boater was over in that area. He could have been camping, come to Landry's site there when they all camped together. Remember, mom and dad, the sister, Brian, or whoever, right? And they camped. And then the sister went home first, I guess. And then later the parents went home, right? So they probably made the deal right there with someone that was camping but had the boat there. Now, you remember, Brian's dad and Brian both had handguns. The father reported his handgun missing. In Brian's room, they have hanging up a flag against one of his bookcases that covered up the gun near where his black helmet of the, I think it's Darth Vader from Star Wars. Okay? Are you seeing the picture? Now everybody's saying, well, he killed himself by suicide. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think there's two guns involved. One of them was Brian's, one was his father. Brian, might have taken the other one to bring up to the campground, or his sister did, or something. And then, they made the deal with someone on the outside because he came by boat and he camped at the campground, which means, usually you can have anyone from Tampa all the way down to Northport making those runs on boat. Okay. So I'm saying, just, connect the dots. You kind of piece it together, kind of, starting to, it's tight fit in there with the gun, you know what I mean? Situation, right? And then they ask a direct question here. It says, did Brian kill himself? And it says, again, they killed him. Okay. So is they, meaning the mom and dad, had him killed? You know what I'm saying? Or did the dad actually kill Brian? Because remember, the mom is not the one that has the handgun. The dad has the handgun. Okay? And it says, listen to the glare, which is, I guess, someone personal to the person that was given the reading here. But it says here that they ask about the remains. Were the remains real? That was a direct question to the spirit box. Was the remains real? Right? And they said, no, it's fake. We put them there. Which proves to me, again, this is a direct connection to the mom and dad because of the dry bag situation and pictures that you've seen either in my previous shows or pictures I've actually posted on the dry bag where they supposedly found his remains, which I'll get to, which is very interesting in a minute. So let's put the pieces together. Dad has a gun. Brian has a gun. They were at the DeSoto campground. Dad had a power boat, sold it, or had it. Whoops. And then they had a canoe, right? So, hang on a minute. Let's go back to this. So, as this is all happening, we're looking at it and putting that together. Like, okay, that fits. Okay. And then looking at, like, okay, the parents fit the picture, because in previous shows I showed even the mom being dressed in black like a witch day before Brian's effects were found, right? But even in the spirit box confirming the same thing, that we had him killed. Now when you say verbiage like that from a spirit box, that doesn't mean that it's an actual pinpoint an actual person. We meaning two people or more usually, right? And by boat. Now remember, Laundrie's had a power boat. They also had a yellow boat, right? But then it also says, ask him, did Brian kill himself? So, and it said, no, killed him, meaning they killed him. So it wasn't suicide. Okay. Now, before I go further, let's discuss about the stuff about the situation on the anthropologist that's doing the what do you call it, digging on his remains. Okay. They're saying, oh yeah, the dental records match up and all this stuff. Well, I got news for you. If they can pull DNA out of a dinosaur bone, they sure in heck can do the same thing out of the bones they found at the Carlton Reserve or the creek area of where they found supposedly Brian remains. At the same time, if the Alphabet Soup made a deal, or any Northport Police Station made a deal for the laundries to have like amnesty and get off on this whole 9 yards, they're going to get really in big trouble and could lose their jobs on it later. Okay? That was another thing that came through the spirit box, amongst other things that adds up to the same thing. Now, when they said the remains found, they said it was fake. They were put there fake, and they're saying that supposedly Brian did. Well, if Brian's out there camping, of course he's going to be laying all his effects all over the place. He's got his backpack. He probably had, all his writing doodles in the backpack and whatever else, right? Now, also too, if he wants to cover his trails, all he has to do is to dig up old bones from other animals and stuff and put them over there, or find them even in that area. Because you got to remember, both those areas are huge in wildlife, and a lot of bones can be found by many animals throughout both those areas, in the creek and the reserve. Okay? No matter how high the water goes or how dry it doesn't go. Okay? Animals usually don't eat bones. They'll eat the flesh, but they won't eat the bones. But here's the bigger picture that Northport Police Station don't know nothing about. And the same thing of the Alphabet Soup, which I'm going to reveal. Anytime you have a reserve or a protected environment, not only is it for wildlife, but it's also for past civilizations that might have been accumulating there. And what I mean by that is Florida has, the Seminole tribes here in South Florida, okay? But they have other ancient burial grounds all through Florida, like some other states have, okay? And in these areas, these are, if you see a mound anywhere in the ground here, especially in Florida, they call them like Indian mounds, which means a burial ground of either Indians or someone important back in the day. And these bones, and if the autopsy report comes back and says, well, no, we can't perform a DNA test on it, it's because maybe it was Indian bones they found, and they're embarrassed that they found Indian bones, and they can't do the DNA on it because why? In the state of Florida, if it's Indian-wise, they're going to probably be protected. Which means Brian is still alive. Now, if they do DNA testing, and they do allow it in this particular case, and they do a DNA, I don't care what dental records say. Nowadays, you can go to any manufacturer company, especially in Hollywood, because remember, Brian says, he had to get to California. Well, in Hollywood, they make skulls. They make skulls with teeth of any variation, to look dead, alive, zombie look, half alive, you name it, okay? They custom make it all. And there's very good artists, not only in California alone, but all through United States. Remember, the laundries got several packages in their mail that the Alphabet Agency and Northport Police never opened and inspected. In any of those packages, big ones or little ones, could have been any kind of bones coming from, or actually man-made kind of stuff brought in from Hollywood and sent to them, or any part of any state in the United States that people custom make skeleton bones and skulls from. There's even secret societies like the Skull and Bone that's part of the Freemasons that have a skull and bones. Okay? And in my past shows, I discussed the Freemason thing and the connection in Northport and all that. You have to go look at that and see what that's about. But anyway, getting back to this. So my thing is that this case is not closed until the DNA matches who he is. I don't care, don't give a shit about the skull. I don't care about their teeth matching, dental records. Nowadays, anybody can make dental stuff just professionally as anything else, right along with making a skull and bones and all the other stuff. That's what Hollywood is famous for. Okay? So I'm going to stay on this case until the DNA shows me the proof that he is who he is, dead. Okay? Now, the dry bag area where they said they found a death note. Remember that? You guys remember the death note where they're saying where Brian wrote his last words and he's sorry to his mom and dad and all that stuff, okay? They're saying that the public won't believe us. This is what the spirit box is saying on the death note. They won't believe us. It's fake. Okay? Which means the note is also fake. Now, again, this is pointing fingers 3 times back to the parents. Okay? And I'm not even gone anywhere else yet. Then they asked the spirit box, did Brian tell the family what he did? Meaning his mom and dad. Did he tell the family what he did? And the spirit box says, yes, he did tell the family. At what time frame yet? I don't know, okay? But I do know that the family was told, mom and dad. Also here, evidently Northport wasn't following Mr. Laundrie and Mrs. Laundrie because it was during the dry season, not recently, because this is what, November 8th, and within the past 3 days we've had heavy rains. But during that dry peak where they supposedly found the bones in that time period, I'm not saying within the 24 hours, but, in that few days, okay? The spirit box says, is the creek gone? It's 4 a.m. Yes, I told parents. Now, this kind of, my feeling on that tells me that maybe the dad or the mom or both of them went in the park at 4 a.m. when the park was open. Remember, it was open on a Monday. Tuesday, I believe it was when they found the bones. So at 4 a.m., maybe they went into the park. Okay? And planted all the evidence. Then it says, let's see. Oh, who knows? This was a very interesting question on the spirit box. I kind of went down more that rabbit hole on that. But it says, they asked a question like, who knows Brian? And they said Derek, right? D-E-R-E-K. We're going to go back to that. And then they also asked a question, did Brian have shot the 2 girls in Moab? And they said no. And they asked if the water bottle that was found lately, the recent thing where Northport police didn't just looked at the bottle and didn't take it in for evidence first, and then they later did. But they asked the water bottle, is the water bottle Gabby's? And the spirit box says no. Now, there's something fishy there when the first time that the Northport police got that water bottle called in and told them to come out and tag it and all that and take it for evidence, and they never did. They left it behind. That's collusion and connection to Mr. and Mrs. Laundrie, in my opinion. Okay. Now let's go back to the person where they said, who knows about Brian? Derek, right? That's what it said. Now, I did some digging on this because I said, you know what, this Northport police situation is not adding up. I don't care. They can sit here and say, they had faults with things and, they know they screwed up and all that crap, whatever excuses want to come out of their mouth now. But here's the thing. I'm going to show you something here real soon. Let me go to. Hang on a minute while I get a drink. All right. So I found some interesting stuff online. I'll make sure this is all documented and you're listening to this. So I was looking for a name because I know how police departments can work when you have good cops and bad cops. You have a corrupt department, okay? They found that in New York City. Some of the old New York cops know what I'm talking about. And also I've seen it in Punta Gorda City Police, and I've seen it in Fort Myers City Police, and I've seen it in other areas of the nation like New York and so on, right? So I says, all right, well, this is smelling the same way. We're going to go check that out, right? So I says, I wonder if they got anybody by the name of Derek, right? And it can't be someone new because in order for you to have a search party down in that park, they can't be new people or rookies or anything. They've got to be people that have a lot of experience and a lot of training and stuff like that. So I was looking for someone on this, and this what came up in their Northport page, and I'll give you guys links on everything that I got on information. But this one here is, these are official pages now that the public can get into as of today, where they show employee recognition, right? Because I guess, like any working job, you get awards for different things, and so they do the same thing, right? And so they had something for commendation, right? And there is a Derek on the Northport Police Squad, okay? And he's listed as a PFC. His name is Derek, and BARTOLOTTA, okay? And so my connection with the spirit box is saying, okay, this Derek person knows Brian Laundrie, okay? And this would be, okay, maybe why the whole thing went slanted on the investigation, as well as being corrupt and trying to protect the family, because maybe this person knew Brian for a very long time. And at the same time, parents, right? So this Derek person was part of the C Squad at the Northport Police Department. Okay. C Squad is the ones where they go out and do kind of search and rescue, and they do like in the little armored truck thing and all that stuff. Okay. So is this a bad cop or a corrupt cop? I don't know. But when you have so much overwhelming evidence being found on the whole case, and some of it not taken in and tagged properly, some not even taken at all, like the water bottle and etc., and it stems all the way up, even after the alphabet agency is dictating them how to handle the case. This shows me the whole 9 yards of everything connected, from the Northport Police to the alphabet agency to even possibly the anthropologist that's doing the investigation on the remains right now. Could be all corrupt, right? So let's go further down that rabbit hole, shall we? Just a little bit more. Now, here's what's interesting. It gets even further. And I told you, I says in my past shows, when you get corrupt cops and corrupt department goes into the corrupt areas of the alphabet soup and then or agencies and then up the ladder and so on and so forth, right? To where we have it right now, where we have a mess in our nation. So, yeah. So here we are, right? In this mess of this investigation, which they should not close. Here's what I found, some other interesting information. And I will give you guys links. You guys want links on some of this? I'll give you guys some links. Let's see. Let's give you a link on this. Here is, I'll put this right now. What I'm giving you right now is an actual, okay, hang on. Let me figure out how to do this. Give me a minute here. I'm going to give you the link of the actual page where I found that person named Derek. Okay. And I'm going to post this hopefully in my banner area so that it runs through this strip here. Okay. And I'm not, I'm not downing don't get me wrong, I'm not downing the Northport police, but if you have a bad boy on the league, it's time for you to, reprimand him. You know what I'm saying? And take him down, if he's part of the corruption. And then, if he's being protected by the alphabet soup, then we need to do the same in the same order. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So there's your link there. And if you go to, let me see what page this might be on. Page, I think it's page 19. It's going to open up in a PF file, I think. And page 19 under commendation area, he's the very first one on the list. You'll have combat cross, then you have combination right here. So right here where I'm pointing at up top, his first one is combat cross, and the next one is combination. He's the first one on that area that I'm looking at. All right, gonna get better. Yep. And if you guys want to know more about that, the Northport police, I'll put that link in there as well. Give me a minute here. Here's a regular one. This is like a regular flyer that they put out talking about how they are really good for the community and what all they do for the community and stuff like that. And I think they do a really nice little flyer thing, booklet, whatever. But it gives you even on here, their statistics. Now, granted, this is an old one, but it's something to reference from. Okay, it's from like 1416. Gives them the jurisdiction areas, crimes and evidence. And what I was kind of interesting about in even 2016 is, how many items were brought in for identification from prints and, all kinds of evidence and stuff like that. And they have really low numbers compared to normal police departments. So it shows me that, they don't really have a lot of experience in dealing with evidence stuff too. So they all need to go back to school. But let's see what else. Or they don't have a storage facility for it. I don't know which it is, but something of that sort. But there is quite a few pages on this one here that I also posted. This one gives you a lot of information and details on the workload of the whole Northport police system. So, yeah, you've got both those, right? But I want to go back to, where is it here? Okay, did I give you the other one? Let me see what this one is here. Let's see. 1,000. Okay. All right. So this one here, like I say, the one I'm reposting back up, that's the one that has the Derek name on it, which I showed you where to find. So I'm going to leave that one up so you guys can check that for what it's worth. Right. Okay. Now, connecting everything to this case like it is, where the dots are connecting tighter for me as I'm seeing it. And if the corruption is lying between Northport Police as well as the alphabet soup and the, higher up situation, you can see my past shows how I link that together. Okay. But I want to know who was in charge, because I know they have a special agent in charge of this case. It was Michael McPherson, Tampa FBI, on the Gabby case. Okay. And he is supposedly a specialist. I'm not doubting his abilities at all. Okay. But I was just curious who his boss was, right? Because you can tell by the way they train their people on who the boss is, what kind of experience they have, what kind of structure is above them to tell them how to do their job. See what I'm saying? So here we have this guy. His name is Christopher Way, and he is the director of the alphabet soup starting with F. Okay. And yeah, um, he is who he is, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Remember, Gabby and Brian, they're from New York, right? Well, this guy is also born in New York. Interesting, right? Now, also, he was involved with the Bureau of Air Commerce, okay? He has, listen to this, a bachelor's of art in philosophy. Now, isn't that interesting, since Gabby was dealing with philosophy a lot with her belief system, right? And same thing with Brian, because his was like kind of far fetched into the Freemason thing, right? Or his other dark area, okay? So we have a specialist or a boss, basically, that does know philosophy very well, right? Okay. Now, if here's what's interesting, I'm going to connect this to it, okay? Brian always left cryptid kind of messages. Sometimes it's done in his paintings and his pictures. And if you've seen my past shows, you'll see how his pictures show where he's going to go or what he's going to do. Okay. Just like I defined where, the DeSoto campground was and how it was in one of the pictures. Okay. Up in Tampa there. Now, this one here is a cryptid message from Brian. Okay. And it says, "Don't try to find me. I have finally escaped my masters' wicked clutches. To the others I say, join me. Bite the hand that feeds you. Viva la liberté pure." Now, I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But that's kind of like a philosophy kind of saying, right? Right? And who do we have here? The boss of the big investigator connected with philosophy, right? Just saying. Now, let's look at who hang on a minute, let me find it. I gotta find it again. All right, where did it go? All right. By the way, you can find this guy over on Wikipedia. Just look up that name in Wikipedia. You can probably look at the same thing what I'm looking at. Nothing different, nothing weird. Okay. But let's see here. There's a lot of interesting stuff. Here's what's interesting. Remember, I told you in my past reports on this case in other shows that I said the Laundrie family were Democrats, right? That I believe that they were Democrats. And so I believed his son was the same way because he had picked up the same tendencies of his actions to be a Democrat. What I meant by that in the past shows was we found clues in his social media that he belonged or was talking to someone in BLM, which is Black Lives Matter, and Greenpeace, right? Now, with this guy here, okay, he, here's what's interesting here. And I want you to connect the dots between both, okay? But here's what's interesting. The area of, where did it go? I probably lost it again, doggone it. Let me find it again. Oh, okay, right here. It says here, quote from the Wikipedia area, December 9th, 2019, ABC Files released a DOJ Inspector General reporting origins of the Russia investigation, right? But it says about the characterizations of the FBI and its agents as deep state. So why responded? I think it's kind of labeled the deserve to the men and women who took the alphabet soup that starts with F, who I think tackled their jobs with professionalism, rigor, objective, and courageousness. That's a that's not a term that would ever use to describe our work and think it's in front of them. He said not to believe the Trump campaign was unfair targeting by the alphabet soup starting with F, which we know at that time who was in charge of that, right? He also denied the Ukraine interfered in the 2016 presidential election. Now, we're hearing about that in the world right now, right? Interesting. Connect the dots, right? Now, remember, I also said something about the makeup here on. All right, here's something interesting. I remember in my past shows I said Gabby had the makeup for a possible human trafficking situation by the Saudis, right? It says January 2020, Senator Chris Murphy wrote to Roe urging the FBI investigation alleging that Saudi Arabia illegally compromised and stole personal data from Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, as part of the possible effort to influence and not to silence a Washington Post reporter on Saudi Arabia. Are you feeling me yet? How close this is actually hitting people? Here's another interesting one. June 4th, 2020, Weiss stated that the Antichrist, like Antifa, are exploding the George Floyd protests. Pursued violence, extreme agendism. Way later clarified the Antifa as an ideology rather than a specific organization and clashing with Trump. Okay, well, I'm going to give you this link because you can see. Remember, I tell you through my stuff, you got to read between the lines. You got to listen between the lines, all that stuff, right? Okay, because once it's like, some people say, well, hey, we're living in a matrix. Pretty much we are. You got to listen between the lines to match up the evidence. Okay. And that's pretty much what we're doing. Right. So here is the link to exactly what I'm going over right now. I hope it's coming up maybe. Let's see. Ready? Yep, it's coming up right now. So, yeah. This has a lot of connections, okay? Now, also think about this. Remember the first time when the Northport police went over to the Laundrie family, okay? They also, out of the trailer or the house, I think it was the house they said, they've taken out a hard drive from supposedly Brian's computer. Now, yes, maybe they took it to see if they, find Gabby's credit card number on there. Okay, fine. But I'm sorry, to me, that's very lame. I think what was on that hard drive is relating to a lot of our problems that we're currently facing right now in the nation. And what I mean by that is maybe covert projects, plans, secrets. You got to understand something. When you have elite people like the Laundries, it's worth $5 million. They rub elbows with some government contractors if they're not themselves government contractors without people knowing. Okay. And using their warehouse for storage of maybe government items. Okay. Or whatever. So you see what I'm saying, right? Okay. So here's the thing, okay? If all this is happening and they know Brian could talk, and we already know the Northport police already have the hard drive and the Tampa police have the handgun, and the anthropologist is supposedly still doing an investigation, which I'm hoping he's doing a DNA on his stuff, okay? to see if it really is him, because I'm not believing the dental records because they can be faked by Hollywood. And you got to understand how that deep state situation happens when stuff hits the fan. I mean, look at the past cases of all of Hollywood, and they're caught up with our alphabet soup agencies and other things. They wash each other's hands for deals, right? So let's say Laundrie's paid some money and got some packages in the mail, and it was having Brian's effects in it, and Hollywood created bones and skulls and teeth and crap that matches up. Well, I'm sorry, any local police department that is not experienced enough to say, "Oh yeah, man, those teeth match right up." Yep. I guess you're feeling me on that one, right? Also, here on March 2nd, 2021, Way gave testimony, Senate, let's see, on the domestic tea on the Capitol situation. So, here's the thing. Is that hard drive that Brian have, knowing that he could be connected to Antiva and connected to Greenpeace, was that hard drive maybe taken from the Capitol and U.S. Capitol, and it has that information? I don't know. Or was it actually his, but yet he has information of the nation on his thing besides the actual, what do you call it? The actual, credit card stuff from Gabby, right? I'm just saying, you didn't hear anything else in the news about it, right? And no one's coming to light about it. I think what's going on there is there might be some government contracting. Brian was probably, since he's a pretty smart person, probably doing some of the business there with Dad's company on there. And maybe government contracting. See? Just kind of like the Biden's son there situation. I'm just saying. Yep. Anything's possible. All right, let's see. What else do I want to see on this? Oh, yes, we were going to go back to this. All right, so, all right, let me get I got to listen to my specs on this real quick. I want you to look at the message on this and kind of feel in your mind what that might mean to you and the possibilities, and maybe ask questions. And I also want to say that I'm feeling the same thing with this, that there's something really wrong with this case. It's very unusual, the way they're handling it, all the way, and the secrecy behind it. Also, I want to look at something else, is how is the reaction to both Gabby's parents and Brian's parents? They're not showing any emotion. There's no crying. There's no anger. There's no backlash. There's no retaliation. There's no facial expressions. These are all giveaways. So I also want you to think about something else. Here's the thing on this. When they get a partial dental record on the skull, that means they don't have 100% proof. They don't have the whole skull. They don't have all the teeth. Okay? Now, another thing, too. when they found the bones down where they were at, right? And Brian's effects. Okay. It's an area in that reserve or wherever that they called, what do they call it? Forgot the name. Give me a minute here. I got to go back to it. Trying to think. Hang on a minute. Oh, okay. So there's no buzzards. That's what I was going to say. There's no buzzards rolling around the bones in the sky. In Florida, there's usually, even if there's bones, they'll have something there, right? And they'll have picking at it, and animals will pick at it. And the area where, okay, so all the area where he found all the effects in the bones is called Buzzard Alley, and usually a lot of buzzards are flying around, and they'll circle around things that are dead or like zombie or mummified looking kind of stuff to eat off of. And other animals, you'll see bugs and stuff, and it was happening on this stuff when they found it. Also, you got to think of all the animals that were in the park, wildlife. No, um, no bones were like eaten up. There were bones left behind, right? Think about this too. A whole body, a gator could eat if it was a big gator. Animals don't eat bones; they'll eat flesh and cartilage and fat and stuff like that, muscle. And also, like I said before, down in the reserve where they were at and the creek area, and a lot of this reserve land, a lot of people preserve it not only just for the wildlife but also for past civilizations that might have sat and died there. There's Indian mounds all over Florida. I know Bradenton have some. I know Punta Gorda have some. There's some in this park here. And when that creek overflows, because remember it was flooding, there was a lot of water. It overflowed, supposedly covered the body or whatever, right? And then all of a sudden it dried up. And then now recently we got more water and it's probably flooding again. So what happens to these mounds? Okay, um, basically, kind of like if it's near a creek, even will kind of slide into the creek, right? And so does everything bone wise or anything from being buried goes into that creek. And if you get a strong enough force of water going down that creek, that washes that grave down creek in the creek, which means when it dries up, it can be found, right? Okay. So again, going back to the uh, anthropologist checking out the all the remains. Okay, he definitely needs to do a DNA test on the bone. If he says he can't, then he's not an anthropologist. I know the biggest universities here in the United States, they do all kinds of DNA testing on fossils, all kinds of bones of fossils. Here in Southwest Florida, they got a river called Peace River, the Caloosahatchee, but I know for a fact, even out of the Peace River, not mention the Myakka River or anything else, that I know for a fact out of the Peace River, there is fossils coming out of that Peace River. I have pieces personally from there, from an expedition type thing, and bill of sale and all that. So I know for a fact, even in teeth, okay, they can cut sideways, extract inside the teeth, and do like a DNA test. And even if it was dry on the marrow, there's solidification of liquids that they can do inside the teeth, let alone inside the actual bone. The bone will be better, and they can actually have a solution of some sort where they can test for DNA. So there's no excuse from Northport Police, the alphabet agencies, or the anthropologists not to do a DNA test. And here's the thing, if they close this case, okay, after saying, oh, yeah, it's dental records, yeah, it's Brian, da da da, if they close this case and 2, 4, 5, 10 years later, they find out Brian's alive somewhere in the world, and I don't care if it's here in Florida or the United States or some other country. If they find out he's alive, because remember, sooner or later he's going to surface because he's going to have to get on a plane. He's going to have to do a probably credit card or a cell phone thing or something else, okay? Or a passport from moving from one country to another, and they can do specifications and specs and fingerprinting on all that. So, and if they find out he's alive later, guess what? All the alphabet soup involved in this investigation, all the Northport Police involved with this investigation, the anthropologists, and everybody will be fired. Yep. Because they colluded with it and then some. Now, getting back to this little cryptic message that Brian says, don't cry to find me. I have finally escaped my master's wicked clutches. To others I say, join me. Bite the hand that feeds you. Viva la liberté. Pere. To me, is kind of his code where he might be living, because I got a couple leads. A couple leads that tell me from us. Well, one of them is from a social media account, I believe. Let's see, was it TikTok or the other one that Brian had? Crap. No, was it? Oh, it was YouTube, I believe it was. Let me see if I can find it again. It's under Tamara. She was telling me that, or he, whoever it was, that he could be in France. This was about a couple weeks ago. I didn't think anything about it until I saw this. And it kind of makes sense that he would be in France, because it's a country far away where he can't get expedited back to the United States. And here's the thing. If the parents, and I'm going to say the parents are covering for Brian, or they actually killed him, whichever. Like I say, it's a 50-50 thing, I guess. If he's dead, then the DNA will prove that he's dead, and I'll say, okay, case closed, and I won't talk anymore about it. But until they do the DNA test, I'm not closing the case until they say it is who it is. And if they're afraid to do the DNA test, that shows proof right there that he's still alive. Third of all, if he is alive, like I say, the lead I got a couple weeks back was in France. This kind of matches up to the situation where he might be. Now, you got to also think about something else. If he's in France, he's got to know somebody over there in France, okay? Whether it's family or whether it's through maybe Antiva or, let's say, Greenpeace. Now, I know pretty much for a fact it's very heavy with Antiva in France. So he might have just said, okay, it's kind of like going in the Marines, but instead of going in the Marines, he's going into Antiva, and then he's doing the big thing over there in France with Antiva, right? I'm just saying. It's a possibility. Then I got another lead that he was in South America, in Brazil. Now, Brazil's very corrupt. It's very dirty. It deals a lot with the drugs down there, amongst other nasty, shady deal things. I'll put it that way. Um, and Portugal, that area, and all that stuff. Okay. Now, I didn't see any of his cryptic messages yet that matches up to that. So I'm looking at this one where he could be more in the France area for what I'm feeling. Whether he's still there now, I don't know. But you also got to also think about something else. If he's traveling abroad and um, our people on our borders here are not scanning him, or he slipped through somehow, this is how he's going to slip through. He's going to slip through because he has a relative. Remember the grandfather, I believe it was, in the East Coast near the Appalachian Trail. I believe it was, what was it, in the Carolinas or something? He is a really good expert with dealing with passports. Yeah. Are you feeling me yet? Are you connecting things yet? All right. So anyway, this is what I'm looking at so far. Is there any questions? Go ahead and put your start putting your questions in the comment area, and I'll get back to some of the stuff. And like I say, these are topics that we're just talking about because it's something new that we're not hearing being discussed that are possible leads. Because you got to remember, the pictures were showing places that he was going to go to. Okay. He has cryptic messages that he leaves on certain things, like this one that you're seeing in front of you, that also can lead to a place where he's going to. Okay. So we have to look at all his cryptic messages, all his pictures, because this is going to give us where he was planning to go or planning to do. Okay. Which means it's premeditative on all his crap that he was doing, right? Let's see what else I got for you guys here on this. I'll look at my notes. And then we also have to go and reflect back at the C Squad there from the Northport Police with that Derek Bartolta. I believe his name is Bartotta. There's a connection there, I believe, with the Laundrie family and Brian, and they need to really clamp him down. And I think he's colluding with the parents, and the parents are colluding with him. And then you're hearing that, the parents are making a plea deal and all this other crap. It's because the parents are guilty. They're guilty of covering up him, guilty of planting maybe evidence, guilty of altering timelines, guilty of many things, and if he really is dead, he's still, like I say, they are still guilty. Okay, they're still guilty because of the timeline thing and planting evidence and all this stuff. And you got to remember when the mom and dad went into park, was it Monday? The park reopened, then, or Monday was it 24 hours? The park was open like on a Monday, and then Tuesday the parents went in, remember, and then all of a sudden found the dry bag and all that crap in the creek or whatever. And we have pictures. I don't have them on here, I don't think. Let me see. Do I have them? I don't think I do. No, I don't have pictures of it. But remember when Brian's mom went in the park, she had a red backpack and a white bag carrying into the park. Right? Then what do you see when they get pulled out? That same dry wet bag thing. I'm just saying, put two and two together. You know what I'm saying? The formula fits. I don't understand why the alphabet soup don't see it fit. What are they covering up? Is this a government contract or secret program bullshit stuff? Or what? Same thing with all the packages. The packages all came in to the Laundrie's family, right? All shapes and sizes. There was one as long as a little canopy tent or a tent, There was little ones coming in, little boxes, medium-sized boxes. All that stuff could have been stuff not only for Brian himself to survive off of, but at the same time, same thing with planting evidence. Whether they got it on Amazon or eBay or Etsy or whatever online site, or they already had it in storage and somebody sent it to them, like the grandfather way up in North Carolina, or some other family member somewhere else in the States. Because remember, we looked at that too. How many family members Brian had, right? Or not directly, but maybe indirectly. And remember, we found one way up there in Wisconsin that was making donations to the Democratic Party. You have to look at my past shows. All these past shows will add up the evidence. It will connect the dots really close. There's enough there that, here's the thing. If the anthropologists refuse to do a DNA test, that's proof right there this whole thing is a snow job. And the Laundries are a government contractor, and they're being covered by the Alphabet Soup and the Northport Police. They're washing each other's hands in a trilad triangle kind of situation. Anyway, this is all I'm going to give you on this for now. Something for you guys to think about. Let's see if there's any questions in the question box today on anything. Let me go to my questions. Okay, Sunflower. Sunflower says Brian Laundrie is alive. God love this channel. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, Sunflower. Where do you think Brian is? If you think Brian's alive, where do you think Brian is? Is he in South America? Is he in Paris? Is he here in the United States? Where do you think he is? Let's see if she gives me a response if she's still here. All right, she's not giving me a response, but evidently she's saying that he is alive. So, with that being told and sold, we're going to go. This is Boho with the info. She's not talking. We're out.